Lewis, Deputy Director, FBI. The mood was serious, and a serious effort was underway to ignore the noise from the streets below. It was difficult. The chief and Lewis discussed the latest series of death threats, and everyone else just listened. The clerks took notes. In the past 60 days, the Bureau had logged over 200 threats, a new record. John Runyon made no effort to hide his anxiety. Working from a confidential FBI summary, he read the names of individuals and groups suspected of threats. The Klan, the Aryans, the Nazis, the Palestinians, the black separatists, the pro-lifers, the homophobics, even the IRA. "What about these Puerto Rican terrorists?" Runyon asked without looking up. "Lightweights. I forget the Puerto Ricans, Chief," K.O. Lewis answered casually. Runyon liked to be called Chief, not Mr. Chief Justice, just Chief. "They've been threatening for 20 years, and they're threatening now just because everyone else is." "Very funny," the Chief said without smiling. "Very funny." He threw the summary on his desk and rubbed his temples. "Let's talk about security." K.O. Lewis laid his copy of the summary on the Chief's desk. "Well, the Director thinks we should place at least 4 agents with each justice, at least for the next 90 days. We'll use limousines with escorts to and from work, and the Supreme Court police will provide backup." "What about travel?" "Not a good idea. The Director thinks the justices should remain in the D.C. area until the end of the year. If that's not possible, the Director at least expects to be notified in advance of travel so that we can arrange security." Runyon frowned. "These people are not accustomed to being babysat." "Yes, sir, and they're not accustomed to being stalked, either. We're just trying to protect you and your honorable brethren, sir. Of course, no one says we have to do anything. I think, sir, that you called us. We can leave, if you wish." Runyon rocked forward in his chair and attacked a paperclip, prying the curves out of it and trying to make it perfectly straight. "What about around here?" Lewis sighed and almost smiled. "We're not worried about this building, Chief. It's an easy place to secure. We don't expect trouble here." "Then where?" Lewis nodded at a window. The noise was louder. "Out there, somewhere. The streets are full of idiots and maniacs and zealots." "And they all hate us." "Evidently. Listen, Chief, we're very concerned about Justice Rosenberg. He still refuses to allow our men inside his home, makes them sit in a car in the street all night. He will allow his favorite Supreme Court officer, Ferguson, to sit by the back door outside, but only from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The place is simply not secure." Runyon smiled to himself. Rosenberg's death by any means would be a relief. No, a glorious occasion. The Chief would have to wear black and give a eulogy, of course, but behind locked doors he would chuckle with his law clerks. Runyon liked this thought. "What do you suggest?" he asked. "Can you talk to him?" "I've tried. I've explained to him that he is probably the most hated man in America, that millions of people curse him every day, that most folks would like to see him dead, that he receives more hate mail than the rest of us combined, and that he would be a perfect and easy target for assassination. He tells me to kiss his ass." "So what do we do?" asked Lewis, unamused. "You protect him as best you can. Put it in writing, and don't worry about it. I'm more concerned over Jensen." "Jensen's a problem, too," Lewis said, flipping pages. "He's being treated for depression, you know." I know, he tells me about it. I'm his father figure." The Chief picked his fingernails with the paperclip. "Is he cooperating on security, though?" "Of course not. In many ways, he's worse than Rosenberg. He allows us to escort him to his apartment building, then makes us sit in the parking lot all night while he plays hide-and-seek. There are 10 ways in and out of the building, and he sneaks around all the time, so we never know if he's in the building or not." "Great. If you can't follow him, how could an assassin?" Lewis hadn't thought of this. He missed the humor. "The Director is very concerned with Justice Jensen's safety." "And where do you suppose Jensen sneaks off to?" Runyon asked. Lewis glanced at one of his agents. "We have no idea." Justice Glenn Jensen's office was on the 2nd floor, away from the streets and the noise. It was a spacious room, yet the smallest of the 9. Jensen was the youngest of the 9, and he was lucky to have an office. When nominated 6 years earlier, at the age of 42, he was thought to be a strict constructionist with deep conservative beliefs. His confirmation had been a slugfest. On sensitive issues, he straddled the fence and got kicked from both sides. The Republicans were embarrassed. The Democrats smelled blood. The president twisted arms until they broke, and Jensen was confirmed by one very reluctant vote. But he made it, for life. In his 6 years, he had pleased no one. Hurt deeply by his confirmation hearings, he vowed to find compassion and rule with it. He discovered a latent passion for the rights of criminals. With scarce ideological strain, he quickly left the right, moved to the center, then to the left. Then, with legal scholars scratching their little goatees, Jensen would bolt back to the right and join Justice Sloan in one of his obnoxious anti-women dissents. He was neutral on prayer, skeptical of free speech, sympathetic to tax protesters, indifferent to Indians, afraid of blacks, tough on pornographers, and consistent in his protection of the environment. To the further dismay of the Republicans who shed blood to get him confirmed, Jensen had shown a troubling sympathy for the rights of homosexuals. At his request, a nasty case called Dumont had been assigned to him. Ronald Dumont had lived with his male lover for 8 happy years. They wanted to marry, but Ohio law prohibited such a union. Then the lover died. Ronald knew exactly how to bury him, but the lover's family brushed him off. Ronald sued. The case had bounced around the lower courts for 6 years and now found itself on Jensen's desk. At issue was the rights of spouses of gays. Dumont had become a battle cry for gay activists. The mere mention of Dumont had caused street fights. Jensen and his 3 clerks sat around the conference table in his office. They had spent 2 hours on Dumont and gone nowhere. One clerk, a liberal from Cornell, wanted a broad pronouncement granting sweeping rights to gay partners. Jensen wanted this too, but was not ready to admit it. The other 2 clerks were skeptical. They knew, as did Jensen, that a majority of 5 would be impossible. Talk turned to other matters. "The chief's ticked off at you, Glenn," said the clerk from Duke. They called him by his first name in chambers. Justice was such an awkward title. Glenn rubbed his eyes. "What else is new?" "One of his clerks wanted me to know that the chief and the FBI are worried about your safety. Says you're not cooperating. He wanted me to pass it along." "He's supposed to be worried. That's his job." "He wants to assign 2 more fibbies as bodyguards, and they want access to your apartment, and the FBI wants to drive you to and from work, and they want to restrict your travel." "I've already heard this." "Yeah, we know, but the chief's clerk said the chief wants us to prevail upon you to cooperate with the FBI so they can save your life." "Thanks. Go back and tell the chief's clerk that you not only prevailed upon me, but you raised all sorts of hell with me, and that I appreciated all of your prevailing and hell-raising, but it went in one ear and out the other. Tell him Glenn is not afraid in the least." Thomas Callahan was one of Tulane's more popular professors, primarily because he refused to schedule classes before 11 a.m. He drank a lot, as did most of his students, and needed much of the morning for resuscitation. He was also popular because he was cool. Faded jeans, tweed jackets, no tie. The liberal chic academic look. He was 45, but with dark hair and horn-rimmed glasses he could pass for 35. Not that he gave a damn how old he looked. He shaved once a week when it started itching, and when the weather was cool, which was seldom in New Orleans, he would grow a beard. He had a history of closeness with female students. He was also popular because he taught constitutional law, a most unpopular course, but a required one. Due to his sheer brilliance and coolness, he actually made con law interesting. No one else at Tulane could do this. No one wanted to, really, so the students fought to sit in con law under Callahan. "Who understands Rosenberg's dissent in Nashville, New Jersey?" Callahan was asking at exactly 5 minutes after 11. All 80 student heads went down, and the room was silent. No volunteers. Callahan's eyes were red. Must be a bad hangover, they reasoned. The doorknob clicked and broke the tension. The door opened, and an attractive young female in tight jeans and a cotton sweater glided along the wall to the 3rd row and sat down. The boys in the 4th row strained for a peek. For 2 brutal years now, one of the few pleasures of law school had been to watch as she graced the halls and rooms with her dark red shoulder-length hair and long legs and baggy sweaters. For a second, Callahan and his Nash question were forgotten. and under other circumstances he might have screamed at her,